Welcome to Up on the Bars discussion with your host, Roy Bain.
Well, we're here live Thursday night on Up on the Bars. The last 2 weekends I had to bail out. Work got in the way, but we're anxiously awaiting Robert Miller to join in. He's having a few technical issues on his end, and hopefully he'll be on here pretty quick. But we have Randy Miller, Robert's brother, and we brought them on tonight to talk about something that's going on really big in on the weekend coming up. But first, I have to give a big shout out to Travis White, who picked up his win at Placerville Speedway with the Tri-State Pro Stocks last weekend. And I know I had a little bit of a rough start getting it going, but once they got going, everybody said it was a race for the ages. So him and Richard Brace put on a heck of a battle last weekend, and Travis kind of come out on top, but I think Richard Brace put the bumper to his bumper just a little bit, tried the outside, tried the bottom, tried everywhere, just ran out of it. And then Gene Gwynn picked up the Hard Charger Award down there, went from 19th to 5th in the main event. So, and I think that's the first time he's ran with us. So congratulations to Gene Gwynn. And a big shout out to the sponsors that helped make that race worthwhile. First of all, Jay and Emily Bryant from Jay's Mobile Welding and Fabrication. Then you had Reno Mitsubishi, Make Your Momentum Apparel, Verdi Local Distillery, Peterbilt Reno Truck Parts and Equipment, Travis Peterson Auctioneering. So a big thank you to all those, as well as Speed Union, and also Workman's Communication we had 22 cars show up. So it was 300 to start for the main event for the Tri-State Pro Stock. So that's
Very
two
good.
shows. We had over 20 cars. So that's a heck of a way to kick off the year so far with the Tri-State Pro Stocks. So, and of course, if you want to check it out, it's on Speed Union TV, the replays. If you want to see who all won at Southern Oregon Speedway, they were up there. We had late models added to the show at Southern Oregon Speedway, and that was actually a pretty good show between, I will pronounce his last name, D'Onofrio or something like that, and Preston Luckman. They put on a heck of a show up there in the late models. Albert Gill picked up the win in the A mods, and Ethan Killingsworth in the sport mods. So I think they had 28 sport mods at Southern Oregon Speedway for opening weekend. So it was a great little show. And you being a sport mod guy, keep in mind our Charles Snyder Salute in July, 7,007 to win, 707 to win, or to start sport mod show at Southern Oregon Speedway. Nobody else is racing sport mods that weekend, so there's no excuses. Just say it. No excuses not to have 100 cars up there in the pit. So, but welcome, Randy. I know you and I think we first talked about 7 years ago, and that was with the Pro Stock race. The first year the Tri-State Pro Stocks went together with a race to honor your dad, the Al Miller Memorial. A lot's happened since then. That's turned into a premier event. Tell us a little bit how that came about and where it's at today.
Yeah, first year was a little bit rough. Rocky naturally lost my dad, and just a few weeks later, at the time, Lovelock had a sponsor drop out and asked us if we wanted to jump on board with the Al Miller Memorial, the inaugural memorial race up there that year. So we only had a few weeks to put it together the first year. And kind of threw it together, and we had that was a pro stock race. Actually, my brother ended up winning that. It was a 59 lap race. I finished third, and it was a good event. It was a really good event. But we wanted to bring it somewhere more local to California, somewhere more local to where my dad was born and raised, which was in kind of Central California here. His home tracks were San Jose Speedway, Santa Clara Fairgrounds, Watsonville, Antioch, Merced, those kind of tracks here locally. They were running on a weekly basis. And we also wanted to bring it somewhere more local for racers to either travel north or south. So it was kind of even to where we can kind of pull in more cars from either direction. So we've moved the race around a couple times. to a couple different tracks, just kind of seeing what worked and what we felt fit and was the right fit for the race. And we've settled down here with Doug Lockwood for now. This will be our third year back with Doug. Doug's a great guy to work with. The track, the facility, everything that he does there, he works his tail off on that place and is very committed to the racing community. So we're lucky to have him. And we're looking forward to being back there Saturday, the 29th here this weekend for the third year at Merced, sixth total year, I believe it is, for my dad's race. And we're going to be having sport mods. The West Coast Hobby Stock Tour is supposed to have a huge car count. Shout out to Brian Cooper and Jerry on getting that thing rolling. I think that's going to be a really good series. And we also have the I believe it's a mini stock nationals that just got added to the schedule here this last week. So we're expecting some high car counts this weekend. Should be a good show.
Well, I know with the West Coast Hobby Stocks, I think they just posted up, they had their 56th member join in. For everybody listening, I'm telling you right now, and I'm going to get a little crap. Ty Carlson told me to back off him a little bit. JB, Ty's coming to whoop you. He said he's going to dump you going into 1 and 2, man. So just hang on. He's going to give you the bumper. He's going to say, beep, beep, get out of the way. So, but yeah, I like messing with Ty. I got to meet him at Stockton 99. He was racing a late model last year. Really cool young man. And I'm hoping he does well with West Coast Hobby Stocks. He picked up, in his second start in the hobby stock, he picked up the win at Antioch last year. So that was really cool to see that. So I know that's going to be a great show at Antioch Speedway or at Merced Speedway. Guys, it's not going to be on Speed Union TV. We do sponsor the West Coast Hobby Stocks, and Jay's put in some sponsorship for your dad's race.
Yes.
Jay's Mobile Welding. That's he's the owner of Speed Union TV. It's going to be on IMCA TV. So I want to make sure everybody knows that if you want to watch the Al Miller race, it's going to be on IMCA TV from Merced Speedway. So just a little public service announcement for that, because I want to make sure everybody needs to support this race, because you and your brother the last 2 years have put so much time, work, and effort into bringing this in. Tell us about the sponsorship you have this year and kind of how the pay structure and everything's going to work with this race, because it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, so we started out wanting to bring I'm a sport mod guy. My brother's an A mod guy, but I was a sport mod guy, and I said, you know what? A mods get all the big shows. I want to bring a larger sport mod race to the West Coast. And that's what we started out with at Merced. We said we're going to bring a 5,000 to win show, and that's where we started. The car count the first year was really good. I think we had 52 modifieds, what we would expect for 5,000 to win. Last year, we were down to like 37 or something. And we started looking at some things and saying, you know, how do we keep this a format that the racers want to come and support us, right? We want to support the racers, but my dad loved huge car counts, loved crowded stands, and that's what we want to do. We want to see what can we do to make it better for more racers to want to show up to our event. Jim Pettit, one of my best mentors I have, he's taken me under his wing. He has what I feel is one of the best shows on the West Coast, if not the best West Coast show, with the Pat Pettit shootout every year. Patton and Jim Pettit shootout every year now. He's taken me under his wing, and he said, hey, you know, when they originally started, they started out with 20,000 to win, I think it was, with the Pat Pettit show. And they've scaled back, and what they've done is distributed the money throughout the field. So we want to give back to more cars throughout the field as opposed to paying out through just the first couple spots. So we took a look at that, and what we've come up with this year is a really good structure, what I think is awesome. We're paying $2,500 to win. I believe, I don't have the paperwork. I'm sorry. I literally just left my son's baseball game to jump in the car to jump on here. I don't have any of my paperwork in front of me, but I believe, like, if you're in the top 10, you're still going home with like $800 or $600 or something. And everybody, it's 200 to start. All non-transfers. If you sign up, if you pull into the track, you sign up, you go to fire your car up and it doesn't fire up, you're still going home with $50. Everybody that signs in as a sport mod to the show on Saturday will go home with start money. I believe, don't quote me on this, Brian Cooper could probably chime in a little bit more on this, but I believe the West Coast Hobbies now 1-2 wraps, Josh Combs, Jessica Combs, awesome to the racing community as well. They added 500, and I believe now everybody in the hobby stock class will take home a minimum of $20 even for the non-transfers. And again, please don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what that one is too. So, we're trying to pay the guys that even the guys that don't qualify for the A-Main, we're trying to give them at least their entry fees back, at least some fuel to get to the track. We know it's expensive. We know it's hard to come. And, if you have some bad luck or you miss your spot or you miss your setup, hopefully this will help, show our appreciation to them that they showed up and wanted to, come support our race.
Well, and then JB is listening in because he's already liked something I see. I've checked my phone through it because this goes to multiple pages. So I'm trolling through all the pages to see all the comments because it doesn't always say their name. But Stephen Blakesley said, I have to agree that Pat and Jim Pettit shootout is a great race. I haven't ever attended it, but I've heard about it. I met Jim Pettit a couple of years ago for the first time at the Bud Nationals when he drove Lyle's car. Really super cool guy. But yeah, I like what you're doing. And that's something that we learned with the Tri-State that we're working on doing is everybody, just like you said, everybody tends to know the winner takes home the big check and this, that, and the other. But that guy that starts or girl that starts 21st or 22nd, they're no less important than that person that takes the checkered flag at the end of the night.
100%.
And
we have to have everybody that shows up to the track. That's what creates the racing community. That's what creates the races that we have. And without everybody that shows up to the track, whether you're a first place runner or a non-transfer car or a 21st place finish, like you're just as important. We look at everybody as equal across the board, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Somebody just posted up $100 to start A-Main and $20 to start everyone else. I'm assuming that's from JB as it popped up.
That would be the hobbies. The hobbies are 100 to start, 20 for non-qualifiers, non-transfers.
Yeah. And it's funny you talk about JB when you're talking about him and what he's done with that. He had the tour that IMCA kind of broke it off on him and all that stuff. So he's been down this road and he had a very successful, and we knew when he announced his hobby stock tour, it was going to be big. But the same thing you talked about, we went through this the first year with the Tri-State is, okay, we had a great idea, but the next was, where are we going to run it? You talked about getting it set up at Lovelock. I've been through Lovelock, but I can't remember exactly where it's at. I didn't even know they had a racetrack till recently, and it's not being rude or whatever. I just didn't know that. And
sure,
finding a place to do these races and put these races on, that's half the battle. And JB went to the Reno Promoters Workshop, him and Brian, this year to help set up with that. They got a taste of it firsthand. Jay went with us this year. It's not an easy task to put one of these races on. So to see what y'all have done is amazing. I mean, I know y'all had a lot of, I don't want to say door prizes, but additional prizes that you gave out throughout the field. And I'm sure you have some this year as well.
Yeah, we're focusing mainly on trying to give back. My schedule this year has been astronomically crazy, so it's been harder for me to work and focus on the race per se. I got both boys playing baseball. I got my oldest boy in high school ball, and then my youngest in little league. And feels like literally, I think I've been at a baseball field 6 days in the last 8 days. And we're getting home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So Dan McCabe he's really stepped up to the plate about 3 years ago. He's part of the racing community too, raced 4 bangers. He's out of Tracy. And he's really stepped up and became my right-hand man, and he does a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. He does a lot of our PR work. He does a lot of our communicating with all our sponsors, and even this week there's a couple little glitches we had with Doug Lockwood, and him and Dan were able to work on it behind the scenes where I wasn't able to have that time. So we're hoping that next year I'm able to focus a little bit more time on getting some additional stuff. This year we restructured the pay. We do have the trophy dash. One of my dad's favorite things every week was a trophy dash. And naturally, it was his favorite thing because he'd want my brother Robert or whoever he had driving the car to be in it. And so we do have a trophy dash for both the sport mods and the hobby stocks. Compliments of Frost Racing, Adrian and Dennis Frost out of Watsonville. Most of you guys know them. They contributed the $500. And so each winner of those will go home with $250 for a trophy dash, which that structure is kind of pending. Naturally, I'm sure everybody understands that. We got to see how many cars show up and how many heat races and all that kind of stuff. But we'll announce all that stuff at the track. But it'll probably be, six. I'm guessing probably 6 or so cars each dash for 6 laps, and they'll go home with $250. Alexander Mead for Mead Performance. He's done some really cool CNC trophies for us this year. He stepped up to the plate. I reached out to him. He didn't even hesitate. He goes, I already have something in mind. He went out. He got these chunks of aluminum. You can check them out on the Miller Brothers Racing page or the Al Miller Memorial page. And they anodized them black and CNC'd all the logos and did some anodizing and stuff to them and made CNC holders to hold them up, plaques on the shelf. Really, really cool winners trophies for all 4 classes. I try to give the trophies and stuff to other classes too when I come, not just the class that is my main class that I'm supporting, but I've been to a couple events at other tracks that I don't want to disclose the track names, but you go to there and they advertise that it's a big race weekend. And over the last couple of years, I won a couple nights on some of those big race weekends, and I came home with a cardboard cutout. Even, I understand I wasn't the class that they were promoting, but at the same time, you when winning one of those races, you feel like you should at least get a nice trophy. So, even the mini late models, the 4-bangers, everybody's going home with a trophy. And I know that the West Coast hobbies, they have their own trophies too. They're very cool. They had somebody sponsor them. So they're going to have some too. And hold on one second here. Doug Lockwood's telling me something. Yeah, he's saying something, but yes, Doug, you are making my phone you are making my phone beep in the middle of the show here.
It's okay, Doug.
Yeah, so we got those, and the hobbies, they got a lot of cool stuff. I think we're gonna see a lot of hobbies. I'm guessing, my guess on them's 40, 45 plus cars. And what I've added to the pot for them is a bonus. Is I've added $1,000 bonus to the hobby. So if anybody shows up and runs my dad's race at the end of the year, there's now a bonus fund that, again, don't quote me on this. I think it's the top 3 or 4 cars will be divided up that $1,000. If you have attended the Al Miller Memorial, then those top 4 cars that are in points at the end of the season will take home the additional bonus money from that as well. So, there's just a lot of little perks and stuff. We're trying to increase the cars that are coming to the events. We're trying to increase the money and support that they can take home as well. So, hopefully the racers enjoy it. Hopefully they appreciate that everything that goes into not just the Al Miller Memorial, my race, but the West Coast hobbies, Doug Lockwood, Jay Bryant, a lot of these guys that are behind the scenes that are actively involved in the racing. It's a lot on top of your regular day jobs.
Yep. So speaking of sponsors and all that stuff, I'm going to take a quick commercial break for one of our sponsors, and we have to give them acknowledgement too. So hang tight. The Tri-State Pro Stock Series would like to welcome back title sponsors Jay and Emily Bryant. Jay and Emily own Jay's Mobile Welding and Fabrication and Speed Union TV. Jay's Mobile Welding and Fabrication is located in Sacramento, California. Whether you need sheet metal for your race car or a complex welding and fabrication project, contact Jay's Mobile Welding and Fabrication. And just a shout out, if you have a business and want to run your ads in here or on our streams, contact me or Jay. We can get you set up, or Stephen Blakeslee. Any of us, we can actually make commercials for your business, things like that. So you have opportunities with that. But Jay is a guy that's just like you. And I'm going to go back. You talked a little bit about your dad and the big car counts and all this stuff. And you have the passion. Much like Jay is kind of a quiet person. He doesn't get up there at the forefront. He gets on the show with me and talks quite a bit and things like that. I like to get up here and talk. I have fun doing this. You're doing stuff with the Al Miller and building up racing. That is something that everybody in racing wants to go back to, the big car counts. I think every one of us would love to go and have a 30-car field in every class of cars and building it up and doing these things and bringing people back to the races. It takes all of us. So if you're a racer and you're not doing out there and telling people, every single person you see, hey, I'm racing Saturday night at Merced Speedway, or I'm racing Saturday night at Bakersfield or Stockton or Southern Oregon Speedway or Willamette Speedway, you're doing a disservice to what we love. If you love racing, you should be telling everybody. If you see somebody that says, I don't know, that we didn't even know we had a racetrack, invite them to come hang out with you in the pits one weekend. Pay a pit pass for them. I guarantee you, somebody, it will pay dividends for you in the end. You will be surprised how much positivity you get back. So
100%. Doug Walkwood, I'm sure there's other promoters out there that do it, but I see it a lot on Doug's. Like, he'll give kids passes, and he'll hand out stuff at area local places in the community. And if you can get these kids involved, right, we need the kids involved because they're our future. If these kids aren't involved, they're not going to want to come out to the racetrack when they're 20, 30, 40 years old. We need to get them involved now. A lot of these kids out there that are running quarter midgets, micros, mini late models, whatever they are, we want to put on these shows for them weekly and get them out there so they can have their favorite driver and buy his favorite t-shirt and go out to the pits. Or, I think one of the things that's awesome, a lot of the Nevada tracks do it, and occasionally down here tracks will do it, is get the cars out on the front stretch and let the fans come out there and sign autographs and give hero cards and whatever the case is. Get those fans involved and, get those kids, telling their mom and dad, hey, I want to go to the races this week, and I want to go to the races this week. And we that's the way that we're going to keep this all going in the future, is by getting our youth involved.
Well, and it's something like this I'm going to bring up, and you're going to see it if you come up and race Southern Oregon Speedway. They have started, and they did the first one at the opening day. It's kind of like a happy hour when the racing's done. I don't know what the beer special, it doesn't matter. I don't keep up with it. But they invite everybody in the stands to hang tight. The drivers come up in their fire suits to get their checks, and it gives the people in the grandstands a chance to meet the drivers. That's Peter Murphy down at Hanford does the same thing. Peter's Pub in the pits. It gives that interaction. That is what's going to bring the sport and build it up, is doing something outside of the norm. Getting people to come to your facilities this time is this day and age is different, because in COVID, now that COVID's lifted, people are looking to go do things and getting out of the house and being a part of society and things like this. We're in a rare opportunity where we can all bring people to the racetracks. That's kind of where this whole idea of the show come from, is just to promote the sport. I just have fun getting out here talking about racing. I love racing, so I'll talk about racing until the cows come home. So, and I know you're taking time out of your son's baseball game to get on here and talk about this race this weekend. Charlie Tanner posted on here. I said, I hope it's not going to be a destruction derby like a few years ago. Nobody wants a destruction derby, Charlie, unless you paid to go to a destruction derby.
I can And I can tell you the number one guys that don't want to be a destruction derby is the guys that are paying to repair their equipment every week. The guys that are sitting there behinds in those seats and well in those cars. You know, nobody wants that. You know, I don't think anybody shows up to a track and says, "Hey, let's tear up equipment tonight." You know, so that's never our goal, right? We always want to have clean, hard racing, right? You want to see door to door racing. You want to see rubbing. You don't want to see cars getting wrecked. That's never what we want to see.
Yeah. If you ever want to see how to race somebody and race hard and you're struggling to race or whatever, go to the Speed Union page, look at the Tri-State Pro Stock highlight clip from the end of the Placerville race, and watch Richard Brace and Travis White. There was a lot of give and take on there. It was. Richard had a great run on the outside of Travis. He could have said, you know, I'm going to stay in this and see what happens as Travis was coming up, but he thought better out, lifted just that brief moment, got it back under control. Then Mike Learn got into the picture. There was 3 cars battling for the lead, and I don't think anybody touched, even when they made mistakes. That's what racing's all about. It's that give and take. And I know as a racer, it's hard to remember that when you strap that helmet on. I think you can attest to that. Everybody wants to get to the front.
It is very hard, but you learn, you know, that in order to get respect, you got to give the respect. So if you're not giving the respect, you're not going to get that respect when it's a reverse situation. And, you know, it's over the years of being in racing, you learn that it's a lot better to go home in 4th place with a car that's together than to try and wreck the car, you know, making a move that doesn't even make sense.
Well, and I don't know. I've never seen Merced, so if I was showing up, I would probably want to start in the back of the heat race because I don't know what the track's going to do. So I want to take it easy around there and find out what it's going to do. I'm not afraid to go to the back because I don't know what a track does.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome little track. Got a lot of banking in it. You know, it usually starts off somewhat tacky. And goes dry, and usually by the end of the night it's dry. And it's usually got, you know, two lanes. There's usually a top and a bottom. There's usually guys that are up there, you know, taking the risk around the top, and then you got the guys naturally on the bottom. And once the track starts to take a little bit of rubber, you'll see the lane come through in the middle as well. And there's a lot of good hard racing. We've had a lot of good, you know, the last 2 years, we had 2 different winners and really good hard racing both years. And, you know, hopefully that's what we see again this year.
Yeah. So you have the sport modifieds. Are the modifieds going to be there this weekend?
Not this year.
Okay.
We have
so you got
the sport mods, hobby stocks, mini late models, and mini stocks. I think it's what they're called.
Okay. So you got a nice show on tap. I mean, if you get 35-40 sport mods, 35-40 hobby stocks, you're like talking 80 cars right there. That's a full night of racing anywhere you go. So, I mean, that in itself is going to be good. And then you add the others. I haven't seen the mini late models. I've seen pictures of them, but I haven't seen them in person. And I'm assuming Joe Peterson is going to be there.
Yeah, they look pretty cool. I've never driven one. They look like they'd be fun to drive, but they're pretty cool. You know, some of them got some kids involved, some adults involved and stuff. So, you know, it should be a good show altogether. You know, it's going to be nice weather to get out of the house, and everybody's been wanting sunshine. It's here. Time to go racing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is the race on 5/4/23 going to have many cars? I don't know who said that. So I'm not sure who said that. I couldn't tell you. So I don't know what track you're referring to when you see that. But I got to give a shout out to Antioch. They have the NARC King of the West at Antioch Speedway this weekend. So there'll be live. If you want to see the NARC, you'll have to tune into Flow. We don't have the streaming rights to that, but the rest of the night show will be on at Antioch. So got to give them a shout out with it. And Willamette Speedway's racing this weekend. They'll be up on Speed Union as well. So lots of racing action with Speed Union. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll be rooting on Joe Myers Jr. making his NARC debut there this weekend.
Well, I'm not huge into the sprint car seen. I don't know many of the drivers. I got to tell you, that young man that's, I'm going to say Justin Cox, he's kind of on fire with the NARC this year. I think he won down at Hanford. He picked up the first night at Tulare, and I'm a Dominic Selsley fan. That guy's funny. That I want to see him with just because he's funny. So,
yeah.
But with his dad, Gary Selsley, you can't help but be funny. If anybody knows him from NHRA, you cannot. I don't think you could be Gary Selsley's son and not be just be funny.
For sure.
So, what are some of the names that you've heard are going to be there this weekend racing with you?
I think from the sounds of it, you got a lot of the regular weekly drivers going to be there. With the hobbies, I know you got a lot of the main guys going to be there as well. I mean, it's really hard to list names from being there. I know that man, got put on the spot here with no paperwork in front of me.
Well, I'm assuming like a Jacob Mallett's going to be there.
Jacob Mallett is going to be there, and I'm sure that he'll be up front. I'm assuming Fred Ryland will be there. I know that Aaron Crowell will be in Mark Garner's car. I know that Kelly Campeline is going to be there. I know that
Campanelli, right?
Campanelli, sorry.
Yeah, I met her this winter, so yeah.
Yeah. I know Todd Gomez is putting together a new hobby stock to come take down JB. And I know that those guys are going to have a lot of good guys running there as well. So I think that we're going to see, I think we're going to see all of 80 cars between the two classes.
I think so too. It sounds like it. I mean, the Sport Mod, y'all did it a little bit ahead of the IMCA Clash this year. So maybe, there'll be a lot of people ready to go racing. It looks like everybody kind of worked on the schedules to work around your race this year at the Promoters Workshop. I think there was a lot of
that's one thing we've learned over the years is that we had to jump on early enough in order to get ahead of that so we could try and work with the promoters to work with us with that weekend.
Well, and I'm gonna give credit because I've been to the Promoters Workshop a couple of years now. This was the second year. The amount of give and take at the Promoters Workshop this year was huge. I actually talked with Doug quite a bit there. I talked with Chris Bennett over at Antioch, Rick Faith over at Petaluma, John over at Ocean. There's a lot of give and take on the schedule and there was a lot of effort went into trying not to step over certain races. And I have to give all the promoters in California a huge shout out on that because that's not always been in the past. So I think it opens up to bring some of these big races and things like that. And if the average person out here listening doesn't know what happens, when that last checkered flag flies for the year, the season does not end there for the promoters. It is a lot of effort putting schedules together, working with this track, calling this track, talking to that track. I went to Warpa in Portland this year. You had to deal with the ones that are in Oregon and working with all of that stuff. And it's a tough gig being a promoter and putting together a schedule. It's not just, hey, I'm just going to write down some dates and throw it out there and whatever sticks. That's not what it's about. So.
Sure. No, and I think you said it best. We've seen it over the past. If you've been involved with racing, you've seen it where the promoters for a while weren't working with each other. And I do think that you're starting to see it come around a little bit and seeing them to work with each other. I think they're starting to figure out that if they do work with each other, just like on the racetrack, if they respect each other with these schedules, then, it'll give and take with that. Then, the other promoter will respect them when they need a date. And, that's what makes these bigger shows work. I mean, if you got tracks that are, I think we have one hobby stock track that's running hobbies this weekend that didn't, that doesn't help the hobby count for us. But, for the most part, I think most tracks worked with us on our dates to where we could clear everything up. And, because we understand if a guy's running for a track championship, it doesn't matter how big the race is. If he misses a week, he's going to lose a lot of points. So he's going to stay in and run his track championship, for his track championship. So, we appreciate it when the promoters work with us and, hopefully the tracks that we're running at, those promoters will work with other tracks to, allow their races to take place as well without a whole lot of interference.
Yeah, Dan Myrick just hopped on and said, "What's up, boys?" Dan Myrick runs the House of Juju. I'm going to mess that up. But anyway, we had a couple of dates set up with them and worked with them too. It's the front wheel drive cars down there. He just picked up the win at Hanford this last weekend. So congrats, Dan Myrick, on that.
Nice.
So it's the West Coast Sport Compacts. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
My brain's going a little slow motion tonight. So, but
yeah, so that's the class that's coming to Merced this weekend.
Okay. The West Coast Sport Compact. They're a pretty exciting class to watch. He brought on a guy that just raced at Bristol. Didn't have a very good weekend out of Florida, Dave Smoot. Yep, there you go. I remember Dan before you posted it up. Had to kick the brain in gear, so sorry. I have 20 things going through my brain. And speaking of that, we're going to hit another one of our title sponsors here with the service. This is Rick Workman out of Sacramento.
Tired of calling multiple companies to complete your low voltage projects? Minimize the hassle by calling Workman Communications, your locally owned one-stop shop for all low voltage needs. We tackle everything from commercial and residential data, telephone cabling to access control installation, CCTV, alarms, and audio-video solutions. With no job too big or too small, we'll ensure your project will be completed to your standards with precision quality results. Let's start a new project together.
Yeah, Dan Myrick said they shifted their schedule to run Merced. Scott House says he's looking forward to running this weekend for sure. So lots of excitement going into this weekend. And like I said, I want to get in now. We talked a little bit off air. I want to find out about your dad because I never had the opportunity to meet your dad. And I know through Lyle, he did a lot of racing.
He did. And this is where I'm not young, but I'm young for the stories that if my brother was on here, he'd be able to. Oh,
speaking of your brother and timing, just like we planned it, right?
You know what? I'm getting old. It takes me a little bit longer, but I made it.
Yeah. It's funny.
I was just saying, I wish you were on here.
Literally. Like right as he said, I wish my brother was on here, and boom, you popped on there. It's like magic.
Well, yeah, I smashed a couple computers because I couldn't figure it out, but I finally did it.
All right, so here's the other brother, Robert Miller. Robert Miller, if you don't know, you should go Google him sometime out here. Robert Miller, West Coast Racing. I shared with him a video I found of him racing an asphalt track back when it looked like he was about 12. I've known him as our generation, Robert, but you've raced for a long time yourself, sir.
Yeah, I started in 80, and mentally I'm probably still 12, but you know, you gotta think young to keep going, you know. But yeah, it's been a lot of years. It's been fun, you know, kind of winding down, obviously. So watch everybody else take to the track.
Well, I just found out tonight before we went on air too that I think we're going to see Robert in a pro stock at Medford here in the near future. Is that a rumor that might be confirmed?
That all depends. That all depends. You know, got to be able to hit that button. It's got to be able to start. That's all I'm saying. Hi, Lyle.
It's got to have 8 pistons that go up and down. Yes, I'm with you. So, Robert, we were just getting into. Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story.
So we were just getting into, and I told Randy before we went live tonight, I wanted to get on here and talk about your dad. I'm not from California. I'm relatively new to the racing scene. I want to find out about your dad since you're racing to honor him this weekend and what he was in racing and what he accomplished in racing. And Lyle told me that there'd be a lot of stories. So we're going to kick it off and let you to do this.
Well, he accomplished, obviously, he only raced, I think, for about a half a year. So he accomplished all kinds by all the unbelievable, the list of drivers he had, you know, and starting off Dennis Wilson back in the day, you know, and they had a Winston West car, which was kind of the step under NASCAR at the time. So, and just went on and on, gave all kinds of people, you know, a chance to drive and just whatever he could do to help the sport, he would, sponsor people, help them get a car out there. And, it just, you name it, he did it. It's hard to pick them all out. There was so many of them. There's probably some you don't want to hear.
Oh, I got to tell you, and I'm going to go back. We had both of the Bobby Hogues on here recently. And I didn't know the dad very, very well. I met him and didn't know Bobby the fourth very well. We finally got him talking, and Dad was talking about them hiring strippers out there on a flatbed on the infield when they won a championship at Antioch. So it was kind of cool hearing those stories. We like those stories, so don't hold back on that. So
yeah, I believe there was strippers in the pits one night for a birthday or something.
I think it was our dad's 50th birthday. I don't think Randy remembers that one, but
no,
it was out in the pits. We had an exotic dancer. Let's put it that way. We'll say it was an exotic dancer. So it brought quite a bit of attention to our car in more than one way that night. So it was fun. We tried to do what we could to, surprise him, which was kind of hard to do things to surprise him because he was always, most of the time, a step ahead of you, one way or the other.
Yeah. So with your dad, Lyle told me that shortly before he passed and all that stuff, when he was about 89 years old, he was not doing really well, and he was working with your car and changing tires in the pits on your car over there. And it was like, man, hey, you got to stop doing this at some point. But apparently your dad was one of those guys that never stopped.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he passed when he was 78, I believe.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
I wish it would have been 89 because he'd still be here. But
yeah,
I think it was like 7, right, Rand? At 78, wasn't he?
78.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was actually, I think, May 27th, 2 days after my birthday, I think.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Me and my brother.
But anyway,
me and my brother were in the truck about 20 minutes or less from Wairika going to race when we got the phone call that he had passed from my sister, and we turned around and drove home.
Wow.
But yeah, he's been always, like Robert started to say, he wanted to race himself, and then he got a car. From the stories I hear, naturally, I'm way too young to remember this stuff, even though I'm not young. But he decided he didn't want to drive the cars. He just wanted to own them. And one thing that guy could do was make money. It didn't matter what he was doing, what he had to sell, what he had to fix. He'd always make money to have money in the race cars, sponsoring everybody. One of the first guys, I don't know about, Robert will know more about it, is the Webster brothers that sponsor our series now and sponsor the Al Miller Memorial. My dad put Tracy Webster in one of the late models back in the day. And, that was kind of back in the day when, it wasn't always the most appropriate thing to do for a Caucasian man to put an African-American man in his car, and he kind of separated, brought the separate lines together there and brought a little bit of the community together there, which is still now with our community, with Terrence and Tracy Webster got, DeMasi driving their car and dominating, a lot of the hobby stock races and stuff there. And, so, he tried to help racing in any way that he could, throughout the years. And he just wanted to be there to help anybody and whoever wanted or needed to race. If they wanted to race or needed help racing, he wanted to help them, or he wanted to help them get them on the track.
Yeah.
To hear that story about your dad doing that is very cool, because I don't know if y'all keep up much of what's going on, but I think Dale Jr. had Humpy Weeder on his download not a horribly long time ago, but they talked about bringing Tony Roper in to drive NASCAR, and basically they went through the same thing. And to hear these stories, and we're talking about what, in the last 40 years that happened. So seeing people take that forefront and do all that stuff, it makes me think that your dad's a pioneer in that aspect of it too, because I mean, you got Humpy Wheeler that was in the same boat with that, and it's cool to hear stories like this, and that's the kind of stuff that I always like to hear.
For sure.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Now, Robert, did you drive your dad's car, or did you go out on your own and go race? Because I know you did some
I
outlaw
drove.
racing.
I think I drove. I actually drove on. I raced on the track before I was able to drive on the street, using my cousin's ID. And
I was going to say, I heard there might have been some shenanigans or trickeries to get you on the racetrack.
Yeah, we got away with it for about 5 weeks. But anyway, we drove for him I drove for him till 86 so my first 6-7 years. And then, we did a lot of racing, we did some winning, a lot of winning. And I did a lot of tearing up cars too in my learning. And I can still manage to do that now at times whenever I go run. But it was that's the way I tried. I owned my car a few times, but most of the time I drove for people. I drove for my brother here, from 15 till 22 or 21.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. It's been a fun road.
Well, and I know one of the coolest things ever, and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, when y'all actually got to go on the track together in sport mods. I thought that was a really cool thing too. So how was that finally? Because I know you raced a mod, he raced a sport mod, so you didn't always get to race against each other. But that one, y'all got together and got to get on the track together. How was that?
That was fun. I mean, we didn't race much because I was up here, he was down there. But basically, the last year I ran, we ended up getting rid of the A mod and getting a B mod so I could run with him a little bit, And I think the main show, the most we ran together was probably the Pettit show that night when we ran a couple of years ago.
And then actually we ran a handful of laps or more the inaugural Miller Memorial as well.
Right.
I actually drove by him and I thought, holy shit, I just drove by my brother. And then on the last restart, he absolutely educated me and drove by me like I was in reverse.
Yeah.
And ended up winning that night.
That was the Pro Stocks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Have either one of you put the bumper to the other one on the racetrack? And how did that go?
Not really. I don't think so.
So I just had to ask because I know that we were talking earlier before you got on here. Racers, when they put that helmet on, kind of have a different mentality. They don't necessarily pay attention to who's in that car in front of them. They do whatever they need to do. So,
well, yeah, I don't think that we'd race each other any different because we're brothers. I think we're going to race just as hard. I mean, like he said at the Pat Pettit, was it last year or the year before when we ran?
Year before.
I mean, we ran probably 10 or 15 laps side by side. And I mean, I wasn't running. I was on the inside. He was on the outside for the majority of it. And I wasn't lifting any harder just because he was my brother. If we were going to get in there and slip up a little bit, we were going to door bang. I think once the helmets are on, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
Well, at that particular time, what was I going to do if he put me through the fence? It was his car I was driving.
Okay, so now the truth comes out. It's like, hey, it's all right. You want to wreck me? Go ahead. You got to fix it. So there you go, right? Which we talked about that earlier. When you're on the other end of that, you don't want to be the one to have to buy the parts and put it back together because that's never no fun ever. So, So what are you? I know we have the standard answer of keeping your dad's memory alive, but what are you wanting to accomplish out of this weekend for y'all as a family? What do you want to see the Miller Memorial turn into? Because it's turning into a lot bigger every year. So what is your vision with this?
I think, well, for this weekend, we obviously want guys to come out there and run hard, enjoy themselves, and say, man, that was a heck of a show. The way it was structured, and the payout was more than fair all the way down from taking the green flag. And I guess for the future, just to see what we got out there. And you get different people that want you to come to place to run, and I'm sure we haven't really talked too much about how much bigger we want it to go, but that's something we have ideas. My brother has ideas. He's the one that I hardly did anything this year. He did, him and Dan McCabe and the whole group down there. They're the ones that they've done everything on this thing. I mean, I did next to, didn't do a whole lot. They've really busted their butt to put this together. So I think it's going to be a really good show, and I know in the future we'll look to make it something better and a little different, maybe. Yeah, I don't want to say too much more, but anyway.
You're speaking of Terrence and Tracy. We were just telling that story, and Tracy just commented, "That's a pretty funny story right there." So talking about that. So there you go. He's listening in. So
Tracy,
how are you doing tonight?
They're good people.
They're still one of the primary sponsors every year. They're first ones to put their money in for this race every year.
Yeah, Terrence was my recruiter for the Marines. And,
Terrence, I was a recruiter for the Navy for years, so I shouldn't say that out loud. So we but yeah, it's cool to go back and do all this stuff. And you mentioned earlier that one of your dad's favorite things was the trophy dash. When Pro Stock's up in Oregon, we run the Hod and Shield tribute race. One of the big things for him was the Crack the Whip race. So they do a Crack the Whip race every year for that. And that's, if you haven't seen that, that's kind of cool. It's like 10 laps, and whoever's in last place at the end of every lap has to pull off the track. You're black flagged. If you're in last place on the track till one stand, it's kind of like a last man standing. And I got to tell you, it gets pretty exciting, believe it or not.
So we're, my brother doesn't even know about this. I've actually talked to somebody about this potential idea for next year. I don't know if there's people there you can see on your end. I can go back after and look at the comments and stuff if they'd be interested in it. But I grew up a lot too with grudge matches. Guys that would, they'd come out and run, 2-4 cars. A lot of times it's just 2 cars, grudge matches over the years. We're actually kicking around the idea of next year saying that, maybe there's a couple races or somehow that we have something that's like a qualifier type deal that would qualify you for like a grudge match race at our dad's race. And then, that would be kind of equivalent to the trophy dash, where it involved other nights of racing too, just not the one single night of racing. And then, we kind of did the whole grudge match deal. Or if you had a couple guys like, JB and the gentleman you were talking about earlier that said he wanted to put a bumper to him, we put those 2 guys out on the track and let them run, a handful of laps, just, and, you run a couple green flag laps and then you line them up again and run a couple green flag laps, just, something fun for the fans to see and do, just something different. I think the fans like seeing that kind of stuff too.
Let me clarify. Ty Carlson didn't say he was going to put a bumper to JB. I'm just stirring the pot between the two. So I want to be out there and clarify that.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
So I just want to clarify that. I'm making sure. But that kid's got a lot of fun, and JB's a lot of fun to mess around with. And JB kind of his trash talking with the Pro Stocks kind of what got all of this whole video that we're doing tonight started way back years ago. And I didn't know it was one of those things. And I like getting on here talking to JB's always fun when he gets on here, and especially when he doesn't have any pants on. It's funny. One of the first times he's like, "Man, I can't pull my computer down. I sat here in my chonies in my chair."
He's a great guy. One of my sport mods I actually purchased from Jerry is a sport mod that he built for the West Coast Sport Mod Tour. And then after that fell through, it just sat in his garage, and I actually went up and, he made me a heck of a deal on it, worked me a great deal on that. And he was JB's a great guy. He's a great guy for racing. He's a great guy in life. He's a hard worker.
Yep.
But, more than anything, he's entertaining, and I think that that's great for the racing community.
Oh, so I have to tell you, we raced against him in Wairika, and I ended up upside down in the fence. No, he didn't put the bumper to me. I did it all on my own. So there you go. That was all my own stupidity. But then we went to Marysville to race the taxi cab, and he gave me a ride back from the main gate to the pits and his thing. And he come rolling up. I'm riding in the golf cart with him and Sexy Stacy. He just rams his golf cart into the side of my car. It's like, that's what you got to look forward to tonight. About threw me out of the golf cart. So it's like, there you go. That's, that's just JB. It's fun to hang out with. He's fun to BS with, and he's a great ambassador for the sport. So I'm going to tell a little story on him real quick too, just because this is funny. And JB, I told you I was going to tell it, and it's out here. He won the raffle that Brian Cooper did for that 602 crate motor. He went down to go pick it up from the gentleman that he got it from. And he asked him, he says, do you know who I am? And he goes, no, never heard of you. He said, well, I'm Jerry, Mr. Controversy Bartlett. Surely you've heard of it. He's like, nope, never heard of you. His ego was so deflated that somebody had never heard of him. So, JB, there you go. You found the one that doesn't know anything about you. So, JB, you got your ego hurt just a little bit. So, there you go. There's my funny story against JB. So, but no, I'm looking forward to it. Tell us a little bit about where the race is and any sponsors either one of y'all need to thank out here. And so,
yeah, so the race naturally this Saturday, the 29th, Merced. I think the pit gates open at 3. The spectator stands open at 5, I believe. Racing starts at 7. Trying to keep some of the sunlight off the track. Now, don't ream me on these sponsors because I got a lot of people to thank, and I don't got no paperwork because I'm literally sitting in a fire lane from my son's game, and I have no paperwork in front of me. But here we go. Todd Gomez, Les Friend, Jay Bryant, my cousin Chris with Pool Table Pros. I guess I should say their companies too. It's Todd Gomez is All Spec Sheet Metal, I believe. Don't hate me for these mutilating these names. Jay Bryant naturally with Jay Bryant's Welding and Speed Union TV. Les Friend with Performance Muffler and Brake, I believe.
Yeah.
Chris help me out here, Rob, with Pool Table Pros. My cousin.
Yeah, I'm the same wavelength here.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. The Stites and Rick Diaz, Farron Stites with Stites Towing and let me think here. I know I'm missing somebody.
Terrence and Tracy Webster.
Yeah, that's his brokerage company that for selling real estate. I'm mutilating this because I don't have any paperwork in front of me. I feel horrible.
I think we got Winning Attitude too, correct?
Yep. Winning Attitude. Lyle Hopper's always on board. My sister, Jenny, and Matt Walker, Robert and Casey Miller's Miller Entertainment, R&J Landscaping, of course.
I was going to say R&J.
And I'm trying to think. I think
if there's any you missed, everybody go to the Al Miller Memorial page. I guarantee you'll see all their sponsors up there. They do a lot for all of their sponsors. You can definitely check out all the list of sponsors there. If you want to see this race live and you cannot be at the track in person, IMCA TV will cover the coverage this weekend.
We do have shirts. We have shirts and sweat. We have shirts and sweatshirts for sale. If you go to the Al Miller Memorial page or Miller Brother Racing page, there's a link on there. It's super simple. It'll automatically connect it to your Amazon, and you just order them from Amazon. You'll have them to your house in a day or two, usually about 2 days. I want to give another big shout out for Doug. I know Doug's been texting me a couple times while we're live here, telling me thanks for keeping him entertained. Well, he's working on the track. I don't think unless you personally know Doug or you know him on that level, you actually know how many or realize how many hours he puts in at the track every week. While we're all sitting at home complaining about how long our day was, he's still out on the tractors and stuff, prepping track and facility. And before I forget, I don't know if my wife's watching, but I got to wish my wife a happy anniversary. Today's our 16th anniversary. and she's at home taking care of the kids while I'm sitting on the side of the road doing up on the bar.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you giving up time to do that on your anniversary, and I hope your wife doesn't kick you in the shins when you get home for doing it. So, and I just got a message that said, "Don't forget your mom."
Yes, and my mom.
And we want to thank you, Roy. We want to thank you, Roy, for bringing us on here on up at the bars here and getting this out there. Appreciate what you do too.
Well, that's what we're here for. That is 100%. I told Randy before we got started, this is kind of like therapy. And somebody asked, will both of you be running this weekend? That is, I know Randy is. We already talked about that. Robert, do you have a car to drive this weekend?
We'll see what's going to go on.
Okay.
I know I'm going to be out there hitting for my brother, and I'm going to help out Scott House, who bought my brother's car from last year. So right now I'm going just to pit, but we'll see. I'm taking my fire suit for a reason, so you never know.
Well, Hutch Strickland just said last week that's what he did for years. He'd just show up with his helmet and his gear in the bag, and he just ended up getting in a car. So it still happens. So,
yeah.
But I don't know. Did Josh at 1-2 Wraps do anything for you guys this year too? Because we didn't mention him. I know we mentioned him earlier in the show for.
Yes, he did. Josh always does. And again, I apologize. I know I mentioned him earlier with the West Coast Hobbies, but yes, Josh always sponsors our event. Jessica, they always answer my million calls, panicking to make sure that they're going to have everything. And they're just like, yes, please stop calling us. Yes, we'll have everything ready. But they do.
Nice trophies too, correct? The nice trophies from
Alexander Mead. Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we talked about that while you were breaking computers earlier.
Yeah.
It
was a good time.
So the younger brother had the technology figured out. The older brother, it took him a little longer to get on there. So
I'm up in Nevada. I'm lucky to have Wi-Fi.
So, well, I would appreciate all y'all's time and for coming on here to doing this tonight. And I hope y'all have a big, successful event this year. And hopefully we'll see both of y'all up there in Medford. Don't forget, 7,007 to win for the Sport Mods, Randy. There's no reason not to come. 707 to start. Your fuel's paid for. I'm just saying.
Unfortunately, and we'll see things change, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to make that. I think we're going to be in Arizona playing with my son. My son's got a baseball tournament that week of 5 or 6 day tournament, because I already looked at the schedule. But my thing is, and I think most people understand this with racing, we've raced a lot in our lives, but I got two boys, and I get to raise them one time, and that's what's priority every weekend. So when you see me at the track, it's because they're not playing most of the time, but if they're playing, you can catch me in the grandstands cheering them on everywhere they are until they're out of the house, and that way I don't have any regrets when I look back on it.
Yeah. Right.
Well, all of you younger, new generation drivers, keep that in mind too. Southern Oregon Speedway Memorial Day weekend, 2-day show. Not Memorial Day. I think it's over 4th of July weekend. It's I don't have the dates in front of me, but it's R. Charles Snyder. You'll start seeing ads. 7,007 to win, 700-7 to start sport mod race at Southern Oregon Speedway. They're wanting to make this into a major premier West Coast event. So, and nobody else is running sport modifieds that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't out of town, there'd be nowhere I'd be.
Yep.
It's going to be a good event.
Yep. So, and I don't want to take anything away from yours, but we want to harp on everybody that one's coming up. So circle the.
No, that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here. We're here to promote races and to create more, openings for events like this, and hope that, there's, we're not one of the biggest events, just that we could be here to contribute to the events that are here.
Yep. And somebody, I don't know who posted on there, said good words, a great show, guys. And thank you guys. And we'll end it right here, and good luck with your race this weekend.
All right.
Thanks, Roy.
All right. Hang tight, guys. Hang tight.